Namaskar and welcome to Daily Global Insights, episode 288. A shout out to our viewers to like this program as we think that when you like our program right at the beginning, it goes viral. We can always hope. Today is Thursday, 2nd of December, and here are the main points. WHO recommends, that is WHO, recommends postponement of travel for those above the age of 60 due to Omicron variant concerns. Sridharji, namaskar. Welcome to PGurus channel, sir. And why do you think that 60 is being put as the number, sir?
Namaskar. Good morning to everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, or good day. Well, I think it's a fascinating question. Why is 60? 60 seems to be an empirical age which they have set when people believe that your natural immune systems begin to slow, and especially so if you have pre-existing conditions. That seems to be the criteria that WHO is using, but who can question the World Health Organization other than themselves? So that's the seems to be the benchmark that they have set themselves. And usually at this point of the time, at least in United States, as the onset post the Thanksgiving, a lot of people travel towards the warmer destinations. And this is also the holiday season in parts of Southeast Asia with the onset very soon of the Chinese New Year and so on. So I think they're advising that on that basis. Other than that, there is no scientific, sacrosanctum behind this 60.
Who can question who? It is who. Boo-hoo. US reports first case of Omicron COVID case in California as markets rumble and tumble before they recover ground. Sridharji, where in California? I hope it's not in my backyard, sir.
They usually do not disclose where it is, sir. So it will be somewhere between SoCal and NoCal. So therefore, so it'll be in the middle Cal somewhere, So I think that's what I would, they haven't declared. Usually they don't declare until there's sufficient data. But hey, the fact is that they have detected now, I think there's 2 more cases they will be shortly reporting that they have detected as well. So therefore, but it should not be any surprise that, there's a fair amount of mobility, travel. And again, we discussed this at length. When you don't know the source as to how this can develop and evolve, it can happen from anywhere.
And a cadre of GOP House and Senate lawmakers say that they are planning to force a government shutdown later this week over the Biden vaccine mandate. Defense Secretary Austin says no pay for Guard troops who refuse to take the COVID-19 vaccine. Sridharji, I don't know if I should, endorse the Republican move here, Sridharji. Shutdown is not good. Can they not take up some other cause? Why do you think they are thinking this way?
I think that what they're basically saying here is that the vaccine mandates has not worked. You're forcing people to have, and most of the, why not you give people the choice and let them make informed decisions around making that. So I think that the most of the Republican states have demonstrated these mandated vaccinations is not helping. Even the frontline healthcare workers, have refused to take up the vaccines, so this is this is now beginning to trigger its way into the system. So the Republicans feel this is the way that the Biden administration can be brought to some sanity. That is their view, okay? They're saying, okay, choose between. If you want shutdown, then it's fine. If you don't want shutdown, remove the mandates, and then we'll sit down and negotiate the more diligently the fiscal responsibility.
And Fauci dodges questions on illegal immigrants following the same travel protocols as Americans say it's a different issue. Dr. Fauci has now become a political buffoon. Sridharji, is this guy ever going to leave the position that he's occupying right now?
Well, I think that it's Dr. Fauci has been the centerpiece of controversy all along, has been the centerpiece of controversy going back to 2019, 2020, and then all the way into 2021. Mask on, mask off, mask on, mask off. Then vaccines, and even with vaccines, you need to take boosters because the efficacies kind of come down, and so on and so forth. So now when he's confronted with the question, which is namely to say, you are putting all these kinds of restrictions and conditions on Americans who are coming in, as well as the travelers, but then you are allowing all these illegals to come through with no testing and with no vaccines. And then for which he responds by saying, it's a different issue. How can it be a different issue when it is the same set of human beings? So I think it has become just like the Defense Department. This has become a political, appointment and politicalization of this whole vaccine process, which is one of the reasons why vaccines has become a very big issue in the United States relative to many other parts of the world.
And here is some shocking news. A guideline that illegal immigrants should only be arrested if they pose a threat. This has taken effect this week. This is a guideline that's been imposed by the Homeland Security Secretary, and this is for the Immigration and Customs. This is now being challenged in the court, but this is appalling, Sridharji. An illegal is an illegal.
This is an order that is signed by Mr. Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, and effectively saying, go soft and do not arrest unless they pose a threat. I mean, isn't it astonishing that if you are an illegal, you are detained and questioned, and that is the norm around the world, but not in United States. And that order has come into effect, effectively making ICE, that is Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department, redundant. They cannot enforce. The law is quite explicit. I think if you recall, we covered extensively in DGI. They even removed the ICE officers from the border and also the CBP officers and moved them into routine checkups in the state of Texas and in state of Arizona, etc. So one can infer and one can see where this government is heading, within the context of this whole illegal policy.
And Supreme Court conservatives look ready to gut Roe versus Wade during arguments in the abortion case. New York State Attorney General says state should become abortion sanctuary. Sridharji, the way I understand Roe v. Wade is that abortion is a woman's choice. That's how the law was, and it has been settled like this for many, many years. That's how I understand it, Sridharji. What is the new case about?
Well, I think that there are three things which usually feature in the US elections as a policy framework between Republicans and Democrats. One, Social Security. Two, healthcare reforms. And three, Roe versus Wade. Okay, these three things constantly feature. The Republicans or conservatives is about pro-life as well as pro-life. And more, consent-based on means-based on Social Security, as well as on the healthcare by choice. Whereas the Democrats is the socialization of Social Security. You can see that in the Build Back Better plan, Better America plan. You can see that in the expansion of the healthcare. And now we are getting into the illegals, which is the third. And then, of course, the Roe versus Wade, which has now been challenged by many many states, effectively by saying that in the case of Texas, we covered this, once a heartbeat is felt, then pro-life becomes effective. Whereas Mississippi has unilaterally made the thing, which is namely, it is pro-life rather than pro-choice. Between these two things, now the Supreme Court is taking up the case. And I think that with conservatives holding sway, especially with Mr. Kavanaugh, and Amy Barrett, then you are going to see probably the nullification of Roe v. Wade and pro-life coming into effect, and much to the consternation of the pro-choice people. Which is why the state of New York, which is along with our Californian state, is one of the most liberal states in the country. And New York is leading the way by saying we will create a sanctuary where within the state, those people who want to have pro-choice will be given the rights to do the abortion at any given point of time. So this is where we are heading right now as we see.
And Pentagon to build bases in Guam and Australia to counter Chinese threats as US feels it is falling behind China. More Southeast Asia bases being contemplated by the US. The United States Air Force Secretary says that both China and US are in a race to develop hypersonic weapons. Sridharji, a few observations before I seek your comments, sir. Yesterday, we had aired a conversation with Elmer Yuan, and Elmer had a new theory about what happened to the USS Connecticut. And his theory was that a Chinese submarine may have come from below the USS Connecticut and rammed it. And then that itself also got damaged because it resurfaced, or it surfaced near Taiwan Strait, and it was going towards a base in China where all the submarines are usually brought in for enhancements and repairs. So given that, the US hasn't said anything of that nature. They said that the Connecticut hit a seamount, uncharted seamount. Now, this is something different that is coming. Now, US is already feeling the heat in terms of hypersonic capability, because you remember, sir, General, what is the name? Chief of All Forces. He had said it, and so did Mike Pompeo.
Kelly.
And, sir, go ahead, sir.
General Kelly.
No, not Kelly, sir. The guy who said he talked to a general from China. That person.
Yeah. Okay. I forget the name. Okay. Sorry. Millie. Yeah.
General Milley, sir. Yeah. So I seek your inputs. Looks like US is behind in quite a few things.
US is behind in space. US is behind in cyber. US is behind its state of preparedness in combating. US is behind clearly around these submarines in terms of what China has done, especially around the South China Sea. Now, the latest one is these hypersonic weapons. We have already discussed the EIMP, electronic impulsive magnetic force.
Electromagnetic pulse, right?
Yeah. So we have discussed. So therefore, I think that and right as we speak, there's more defense budget cuts on the anvil, which the Republicans are contesting. That is going to be taken up any given point of time. That will come up. So you have very clear perspective coming from two sets of within the Defense Department, two sets of people. One who feel that the allocation and the research as well as the focus is inadequate, versus the others who think that we have enough money to bomb the whole world. Most of the money is spent, people don't recognize, because of vast amount of bases that US has around the world in partnership with many countries. These bases have to be run on a regular basis from an operational point of view. Most of the allocation of money is going towards that purpose, but not towards the allocation of the new technologies that United States need to contend with, especially from a resurgent China. So I think that is the first observation. The second observation that you are talking about is around this submarine. You will never get to know from United States. You will never, whether you have inside perspectives, just as people sharing their views and commentaries as to what exactly happened. Neither from China nor from United States you will get to know. But the fact of the matter is that, as you rightly pointed out, and as probably Mr. Elmer pointed out, that there was an accident, there was a bump in the South China Sea, which we also touched on without going into the specific details. It is conceivable with the number of, what you call equipment and machinery that is now in South China Sea, it's well within the realms that it is possible that a submarine could have rammed or some other object could have rammed into USS Connecticut. So that's my 2 cents. I probably endorse the same sentiments, but we will never get to hear from either United States or China the official position, sir.
And Japan needs stronger defenses and more frequent reviews, says former Prime Minister Abe, as Japan also starts to extend its range of long distance missiles to over 1,000 kilometers. Sridharji, with the return of Abe, suddenly Japan seems to have found its voice.
Indeed. Who is the author of Quad? We go back. Who is the author? Mr. Shinzo Abe. Why he felt? Because a clean, open Indo-Pacific is a fundamental imperative for energy, trade, and the sovereignty, security of nations. He was the principal architect. He sensed the issue coming. So I'm glad that he is, he's re-emerging as the head of the caucus to represent the voice. Again, we covered that in Daily Global Insights. I'm glad that he's doing that. And we will begin to see Japan expanding its defense budget, but now we are also seeing that it is expanding the long-range missile capabilities, so that it acts as a deterrent both against China as well as another very interesting and very aggressive neighbor in North Korea. Just to go back to the previous point to close out, there are two nations in the world which will announce it's with loud and thunder. One is Iran and North Korea. Whatever missiles they launch against either China, Japan, United States, Japan, those are the two nations which will announce. You will not anything hear from either Japan, from China or United States on some of the strategic matters.
And first, ASEAN and Russia Navy drills sends messages on AUKUS and China. So now ASEAN countries are doing drills with Russia. I'm a little confused, Sridharji. I thought Russia was a minion of China or a junior partner of China.
I think we covered this, sir. This is mass confusion about each other not trusting the other. Okay, right. So you sit in each other's camp and you keep on scratching each other's back. Remember, Russia has partnerships with Cambodia. It has hot partnership with Vietnam. It has some partnership with Laos. It has some partnership with Myanmar. So therefore, there's some ASEAN nations, with whom Russia has a partnership, and ASEAN itself sees ASEAN is neutral. It has taken a very clear position. We work with China, we work with United States, we work with Russia. Our objective is that we want to keep a war-free and a seamless zone. We are all about trade. We have a captive population. We are not interested in war after the World War I and World War II. So therefore, I think it should not be any surprise. It is just a token exercise that is going on. Also, remember, Indonesia has always had some challenges with Australia. Indonesia has always feared that, whether Australia is interested in the annexation of some of the islands, especially the strength of the Australian Navy and the strategic Australia-US partnership. So when you have this nuclear submarine deal as part of the AUKUS, so clearly Indonesia is also expressing some concern as to what should be the deterrent and who else they can go. They can go to Russia and have an arm with Russia. And you remember, Indonesia, Vietnam, and even Philippines have deals with India as well, from BrahMos to other types of partnership.
And refugees from the Chin ethnic minority are fleeing the mountainous regions of Myanmar into India, and they are bringing stories of shell towns and torched houses. And it's because of Myanmar military's growing onslaught. Sridharji, Chin minority, are these Buddhists or what are they, sir?
I don't think they're Buddhists. They're they are a minority tribe which are in the neutral territory. The Buddhist is a resurgent wing in Myanmar. Contrary to the Rohingyas, the Chin minority seem to be, I don't know whether they're less militant or more militant or whatever they are. It's very interesting. I saw some pictures. All of these Chin men, guys who are fleeing from the western region of, the Myanmar, eastern region of Myanmar and the western region of India. They are, western region of Myanmar, not eastern region, western region of Myanmar fleeing into India. They all have pro-Modi slogans and basically saying, Modi, you got to help us out and, give us shelter within India. So I think that there's a lot of they may be forming part of the rebellious group against the junta and in the border regions. So India has one more challenge, caught between a rock and a hard place. It generally tends to be pro-junta because of their arrangement and partnership, etc., as it deals with some of the rebels who pop in and pop out of Myanmar. And then you have these fellows coming in with pro-Modi. How India is going to deal with it is an interesting situation.
Sree, as an aside, I'm not sure if we are covering it today or not, but I want to just plant the thought on your mind. Sir, India has offered to send 40 trucks of food grains to drought-ravaged Afghanistan, despite the fact that Taliban is in power there, because it's the people of Afghanistan that India cares about. However, in order for that to go, it has to go through Pakistan. And Pakistan said that, no, we are not going to allow your trucks to go. You give it to us and we will distribute it to them. And, India is not going to trust Pakistan. The thing I'm hearing on the street, sir, is that India is going to ask US or the UN to provide safe sanctuary or monitor the path of these 40 odd trucks going from Indian border to Afghanistan. I don't know if you have any update on that, sir.
I think we'll cover this a little more in detail tomorrow. It's very sketchy, the reports that are coming out. As usual, the media plays a part. So there's one set of media which says India and Pakistan will strangely collaborate in the distribution of aid with joint efforts. That's one set of news that is coming out. I'll be very, very surprised that if they collaborate along those lines when there is a trust deficit between the two nations. And remember that India invited Pakistan and China for the security meet on the Afghanistan with the Central Asian countries, and Pakistan refused to attend that specific meeting. So India has much more trust in United Nations and US, with whom it has a strategic understanding in dealing with the Afghan crisis. So I feel that that's the second set of media narrative. So we'll cover a little more in terms of where it stands and how this is going to happen, especially in the context of a very hostile regime which is present currently managing the affairs in Afghanistan.
And Iran has entered a gas swap agreement with Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan. And as per the agreement, 1.5 to 2 billion cubic meters of gas will be imported to Iran annually from Turkmenistan, from the Saraks, and will be sent to Azerbaijan through the Iran transmission line network. Sridharji, I need to have a map to understand this, but perhaps you can explain it better, sir.
Well, what is, I think, that there are three important messages from this news item, which is why we are highlighting. First and foremost, this natural gas is going to be the hot potato in that specific region, ranging from Russia on one end in Europe, Turkey, Iran, and going to Qatar. Okay? So that's the first message. The second message is that here is the Afghanistan. Many of these pipelines have to pass through the Afghanistan area, which has both Pakistan and India to some extent. Remember that Iran is one of the used to be one of the partners of India. Now the third is this is a very interesting swap deal where they source from Iran sources and then uses its pipeline, that is the Trans-Iranian pipeline network, and supplies it to another Central Asian nation. In the process, collecting a fee. The point is not around the this what you call import export swap, but it is more around the strategic importance and strategic bargaining that Iran is trying to put itself in the middle of for the Central Asian republics in terms of the gas. Parts of Central Asia, most notably Azerbaijan, has plenty of natural gas reserves. So this is the next frontier that is going to be fought in that specific region behind access to the ports.
And United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia meet to reset relationships as the United States shifts its focus to China, exiting the Middle East and Afghanistan. Is this a good thing or not a good thing, Sridharji?
Well, I think that it is, in my view, it is one thing is it is. I don't think it is a good thing within the context of unification of leadership. When you have such fragmented efforts going on, there is no mechanism to unify in the event of a crisis. Look at the players: Turkey, UAE, Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Let's ignore Iran for the moment. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey. It's very, very fascinating as to how these distant partners once upon a time are coming together, feeling the pinch of the absence of United States, not just in Afghanistan, but also exit from Iraq. When there is no deterrence in the region, especially we talked about the three I's and a nuclear armed Iran, plus a drone armed Turkey and Iran, and plus a nebulous Lebanese, Iraq, and the southern Syrian region, along with the Gaza.
And Iran commences full nuclear enrichment with advanced centrifuges while stalling at Vienna talks. Sridharji, we talked about this, I think, a couple of episodes ago. Maybe we can talk a little bit more today. We also said that Israel is not going to allow Iran to reach its logical conclusion. How do you see this thing play out now, sir? Do you think some sort of an action from Israel is imminent?
Israel action is imminent. So I think they've made it very clear, which is to state that they will take. They are in a state of preparedness to protect the sovereignty and the integrity and the state of Israel. Iran will choose to act on its own when its security is under threat. We're not going to, unlike United States or any other nation, you will not have specific plans spelled out by Israel. Only when you see an outcome, post the outcome, you will see all kind of analysis paralysis coming out. How do I see this play out? They will not allow a fully functional, fully what you call enriched, ready, and almost imminent nuclear armed Iran. That's particular state Israel will not allow. They will do what is required to make sure that deterrence is in place.
And NATO says that Russia would pay a heavy price for Ukraine aggression, while the US Secretary of State tells Russia to pull back from Ukraine or face stringent sanctions. As far as I can remember, Sridharji, there are sanctions still on many people close to Putin on their financial assets outside of Russia, isn't it?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. This is going back to that Gazprom deal and the arrest of Navalny, and that thing goes on in the background. Russia doesn't care anything about sanctions. So this is just another brouhaha without any kind of material outcome that comes out of it. Antony Blinken was in the region, so he issued a statement. The NATO issued a statement. I think, to me, what Ukraine said is the correct thing. We need a direct dialogue with Russia. We need to sit down with them across the table and figure these out and work out a formula. Any of these external people coming in are not going to help our cause. I think that may be the eventual outcome. at the end of the day, they're culturally as well aligned. So you may see something coming out by these two guys sitting across the table.
And Europe COVID cases are expected to peak during Christmas with hospitalizations and ICU units stressed. India's manufacturing sector gains further strength in November with increases in production and sales per producers manufacturing index. And Indian GDP is likely to grow more than 9.5% in fiscal year 22 based on current trends. India's fiscal deficit also appears to be on target based on strong revenue and expenditure numbers. Government is confident of meeting 6.8% fiscal deficit. Sridharji, couple of things. It's impressive the growth. The fiscal deficit number, it used to be 3%. How did this magical 6.8% appear, sir?
I think it's 6.3%, a correction. I think 6.3%.
Even then, yeah.
Yeah, 6.3%. The deficit is, they agreed that the deficit will be up as a result of extraordinary measures and debt that they had to do, draw down the extra amount to address the COVID issues. 800 million people had to be fed, the vaccines had to be given. So the world in a unified manner. Remember, United States borrowed close to 6.5 trillion to address the COVID issue, right? So therefore, the extraordinary measures were taken in a coordinated manner across the world. And India also correctly, addressed the fiscal needs by increasing their deficit. And the target was 6.3%, and they believe over a period of time they will address that, bring it down to the 3% or even 4% number that you are alluding to. So there are two important, economic drivers. Nothing is sacrosanct in this world. Everything is flexible. One is inflation. Inflation was set as 2% in United States or around the world. It's now reset at 4.2%. Okay, our inflation is way beyond 5% in United States and around the world. So you have this inflation number that is being creeping up basically because of the extraordinary situation of the pandemic. The second is the deficit that you are talking about. All you need to do is look at some of the major nations' deficits. We continue to pump money and the deficit's going up. So India cannot sit by itself. I mean, India is also part of the global ecosystem, and it's also part of the pandemic issues. And India sits there as the number 2 nation in the world outside of United States by way of number of cases treated, and still 1.2 billion people to be vaccinated. So naturally, the deficit is going to go up. And I think that the question therefore is this a habit or is this going to be contained over a period of time is the question.
India's GST collection surpassed 1.31 lakh crores in November, second highest ever number achieved. Very, very impressive, Sridharji.
Well, I think it just implies that the Indian economy is getting back and getting out of pandemic, things are limping back. The PLI programs, which we touched on, both capital as well as the expansion of manufacturing activity has occurred under the program-linked incentive programs. And you're beginning to see that they also set export targets. So it seems to be, very focused around, building up the exports. India has built pretty good reserves. So what you're seeing is the effects of all that flowing into the system as with the economy coming back. Remember, also to some extent, the Chinese, whatever you want to call incursions or mischief or the COVID-related matters has resulted in India using that window to some extent inching its way in buying or capturing the market share around the export aspects of it, the export markets. This PLI has also resulted in import substitution. So therefore, with the indigenization of some of the manufacturing. So all this is having a positive effect on the Indian economy.
And India builds over 4,358 kilometers of national highways in mountainous and border areas in the past 5 years at the cost of 70,733 crores, fortifying its security and movements. Sridharji, one could also argue that your adversary is bleeding you out by forcing you to build all these roads.
Of course. The question that is left to the Indians is, would you like to have this money allocated, have porous borders? Would you like to have those areas underdeveloped? Why India did not develop for 70 years? It's fortification of the border. Why India didn't spend money for 75 years in developing some of these states, why they left these states to fend for themselves, why they were neglected, why they were not mainstream connected. So there are several questions that is posed. And I think that it is high time, whether the enemy forced you to do it or not, developing your own national infrastructure and developing the regions which are vulnerable and sensitive is a fundamental imperative. So I think one of the days, we'll get, either Mohandas Pai or somebody to talk about what is the Northeastern GDP contribution, 20 years ago, what is the Northeastern states GDP contribution today, and what is the contribution that is targeted for foreseeable future. So there are various types of aspirations, which is to say whether it should be cut off, whether it should be part, whether it should be an integral part of the national mainstream. I think that this effort is along three things. One, for people to move. Second is to build economic connectivity amongst those states. And third is, in the event of this incursion from our very good, the neighbors of the India, you need to have defense preparedness.
And India seems to be having a surplus of coal now that they have been moving the coal to the needed places. India has also added over 213 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity, either installed or under implementation. I would assume that this is mostly solar, Sridharji?
All solar, yes. Mostly solar, yeah.
And India's... Go ahead, sir.
There are no two important points. One is you can see that India responds to crisis very well. We saw that in the case of vaccines. We saw that in the case of this cryogenic oxygen, which was needed. Now, when we recall, again, we covered in the DGI, when there was, sporadic issues around coal, an edict was issued that people should have minimum 60 days of coal supply at the thermal plants. And you're beginning to see the effects of that come out.
India's active cases dip below 100,000 as vaccine rates pick up with fears around Omicron, Sridharji.
Yes, G-Omicron. So therefore, so G-Omicron. So, the fact is that there is a rapid now, I think India is now hitting a run rate of somewhere between, back to run rate of between 7.5 to 8.5 million vaccines per day. If not anything, the adversarial neighbors do some good things besides making sure that the borders are, up to the mark. The human body is being, the immune systems are being developed. So I think people are running and the vaccination momentum has gained. But more important, I think that they have now, since you yourself have, just in India, and we were in India more recently, sometimes it's a bit of an inconvenience, but the mechanisms that they have put in place to test you when you arrive, to test you when you leave, and the facilities at the airport, this rapid testing that goes on, and the ability to track and get your results, they're all auguring well in terms of preparedness of the nation, at least at the airports. I don't know around the bus terminals and railway stations and so on, whether there are effective mechanisms and controls in the place. The fact that India is below 100,000 is a good number relative to many nations that we covered yesterday in the DGI program.
And before we conclude our session for today, a word about the market, Sridharji.
The markets reacted again adversely. It was up, but then the detection of the Omicron case in California brought about some tepid fears. So therefore, the market, responded. Again, the markets, as I got into the program, is up close to 200 points. The Dow, the S&P is also up. So you will begin to see gyrations. But I think at the end of the day, unless there is some very, very bad news in December, we'll finish the year very strong. Even as it stands, the numbers are pretty good.
And thank you very much, Sridhar ji. As always, we'll be back tomorrow, bright and early for some in the United States, and in the evening for the others, perhaps in India. Thanks for joining. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a good evening, and stay safe and get vaccinated. And in India, and keep Mr. G Omicron, out of the shores of India.